Welcome to Apocalypse. Before creating the apocalypse, I need to find the right candidate. Someone who currently leads a self-centered existence and takes his life, his friends, his family, and material comforts all for granted. I'm hoping he'll be able to learn from the meticulously crafted experience I'm going to put him through. And by taking everything away from him, I hope to make him recognize the value of what he has. To set my plan in motion, I sent out a tweet last spring asking for volunteers to take part in a new unspecified show. Over 8,000 replied, out of which hundreds were put through a series of rigorous tests and interviews designed to highlight certain aspects of their personalities. Through this selection process, I've identified one candidate who seems to fit the bill perfectly. 21-year-old Stephen from Buckinghamshire. I've chosen him because his character makes him particularly suited to this project.
I'm lazy, I'm more or less irresponsible. No point in me trying as hard as I can and then going to fail. I've never put my head down and just done what I want to do.
Stephen's also independently assessed by a psychiatrist as being robust enough for what lies ahead. He's also tested to check that he's suggestible, as I will need to put him to sleep at 2 key points during the programme when I need to move him from A to B. This suggestibility also allows me a safety measure, as it means I can use hypnosis to bring him down if either I or the psychiatric team that will be watching him ever feel he's reacting too adversely. If that does need to happen, we will include it in the show. In order for this to succeed, it's essential that Stephen has no idea that he's been selected. As a result, he's been told that he failed the audition. Several weeks have gone by, and it's time to put the plan into operation. I want to observe Stephen going about his daily life to get a real sense of who he is. So with the help of his family, my crew is installing 19 hidden cameras in and around his house. He mustn't have any idea that he's being filmed. Currently in a dead-end job, Stephen lives at home with his parents, older brother and sister. Having secretly watched him for several days, it seems Stephen is stuck in a rut but lacks the motivation to do anything about it. I want to find out what it's like being around Stephen from his friends and family.
Stephen takes things for granted. He takes life for granted. He takes everybody for granted.
She cooks the dinner for him. She tidies up after him. She does his washing for him.
Fruit, sir? Sir, like fruit? It's always a chore to get anything out of him. To me, he should be a man and he should be more grown up.
Stephen can act like a stroppy teenager still. Mum and Dad might be sitting down watching TV and he'll come in and just change the channel. They are supportive parents at the end of the day and they're looking out for his best interests. So I don't know why he's not as grateful.
Every fight is the same, isn't it? No, every fight is the same. That girl the other day wanted to get married. Oh, I watched something. Ah! It is quite upsetting, and I'd love him to change his attitude. I'd love him to appreciate me. I'd love him to love me more, because sometimes I feel he doesn't love me.
Stephen's home away from home is the local pub where he spends most of his evenings.
We all call him Two-Pint Brosnan, because he can't really handle his drink. He
can't really can't.
Yeah, he really can't. A lot of the time that turns him into a big liability.
To see Stephen in full flow, I got one of his mates to film him on a typical night out.
We sort of take it in turns of looking after him.
Got a rota.
Yeah.
9 till 12 is me.
Yeah.
12 till 1. That's the worst time.
Does he appreciate what you guys do for him?
I hope he appreciates it. Doesn't really say anything.
Stephen's had several jobs, most of which his mum's found for him, and none of which is stuck out for very long.
He's been a gun safe maker.
He worked at Heathrow, like...
Oh, yeah, doing
as a what did he call it? A jam buster, he called it. Worked at Domino's.
He got trained to be an oven cleaner.
He's done one oven so far.
I'm not leaving the owner!
He's not fighting hard enough to make the best of himself.
Having secretly filmed him for 4 weeks and talked to the people closest to him, I've established that Stephen can be selfish and lacks a sense of responsibility and drive. Most of all, he needs to develop some compassion towards his friends and family.
Hello, how you doing? I'm good.
So while he's out at work, I'm going to try and find clues about how to best help him by snooping around his room.
This is the room of somebody who doesn't have a lot of order or control over their life. This is essentially the room of a teenager. Stephen's in his 20s, but he is the youngest of the family. So he's grown up being treated as the youngest in the family and hasn't quite made the move away from that now. People need to find their own role models and authority figures. I found this on the shelf. It's a book called How to Be a Mind Magician, which I don't know, makes my heart go out to him. You get into magic, really, because you want to impress people, and you only want to impress people if you don't feel impressive yourself. I know all this because obviously I've been there myself. Stephen is, in my mind, symptomatic of a general malaise where people feel a sense of, I guess, entitlement. When we take things for granted, we forget to desire the things that we already have, and that's really what this is about.
So what happened to the gallery?
Yeah, the picture's gone.
How?
I don't know, and it's all over in Leather Lane. I kind of knew you'd get away with it.
Next question. If you had to,